Hello and welcome to the Rangers morning briefing the day after the night before when the Ibrox club went and beat Sparta Prague 2-0 in a fine victory in Govan in the Europa League that puts them into the next stage of the Europa League for the third time in 3 years. So it's a succession of excellent performance. Joshua, you were there. Let's touch first of all on the atmosphere and the general feeling on the ground welcoming Giovanni van Bronckhorst as Rangers manager. What did you make of that?
It was a fun evening throughout, really. Kind of felt very much a kind of shackles coming off performance, and the support throughout were, as you would imagine, very welcoming of Van Bronckhorst's return. The tifo display that was put up before the game ended up coming back up, I think, 3 or 4 times. Such was the excitement and adulation directed towards the new manager, and all in all, I think, a long overdue, very fun European night. I mean, the Bromby game was a good victory, but it wasn't quite as exhilarating, I'd say, as last night was in terms of what the team gave early in the game, the product that was on show, and that very much complemented the atmosphere in the stand. So I think, as well as Van Bronckhorst, as well a return as Van Bronckhorst could have hoped for. Loads of really exciting details in there, Jonny. But the word for me would be fun. A really thoroughly enjoyable evening, Ibrox.
Yeah, and Joshua, it was obvious from the start Rangers were in a slightly different mood to what we've seen pretty much throughout this season. There was a pace and keenness to press that has been rare. And within the first minute, you just knew Rangers were at it, didn't you?
Yeah, there was, and I think, firstly, for the team to look so different, and it is probably again a little bit the shackles coming off, and maybe a little bit more freedom in certain aspects. But to look that different, I think, after 2 training sessions compared to what, let's be honest, Jonny, was a pretty broken performance, I think, on Sunday. It is hugely impressive, and obviously loads for us to touch on within that. I think the shape without the ball was good, and that allowed the wingers to press forward instead of overloading and shuttling across. The threat in behind was constant. Ryan Kent's carry map, which I'll be putting out later, is a joy to behold because it all comes from the left and goes into dangerous areas. There was just so much to enjoy about it, as you say, and I think it was there's more intentional counter pressing together as a team. Where, as you say, and I think in the first minute you seen Hadji cutting off a passing lane across, making that diagonal run in field, and it was very aggressive. Stephen Davis made the most pressures of any Rangers player, and he was a real dog of war in that middle of the pitch, doing a lot of work. And yeah, loads of differences, which I'm sure we'll get onto. Kent, Morelos, which I know you'll be extremely happy about. Van Bronckhorst solved the Patterson and Tavernier conundrum in a way. He spoke really interestingly about that, how if they're both defending similar spaces, because the opposition left back is playing like a left winger, you can play them together. I thought that was a really interesting detail. Calvin Bassey was fantastic, and the team defended. You seen how much work going back the way Hadji and Kent did. That really helped the wide overloads that Sparta were trying to create, and the areas in which they're really dangerous. And you've seen that in the first leg. So it was the system that Gio said he thought was best to play against Sparta, and it absolutely worked. It got the crowd on side early with a exciting start, as you say. And there was lots of these little details that he alluded to in the Blue Room on Monday, that had great impact on the game.
Yeah, and I noticed that he did say after the game, you asked him the question about Ryan Kent, and he said, yeah, he is going to be starting wider. And he just looked a lot more dangerous. He looked like he was picking the ball up rather than picking it up in the half space, way back and nearly in his own half. He's picking the ball up much closer to the goal and was able to make much more of an impact on the game because of that.
And it was so enjoyable to watch, wasn't it? I mean, my piece this morning starts with the anecdote of Van Bronckhorst kind of constantly coming out to his technical area in the early stages, encouraging Barisic to play quickly into Kent, but encouraging Kent to stay wide. Again, the pass map that will go out later today on the Rangers review shows that, and that's where he's dangerous. You know, these central spaces can be dangerous when there's not 5 players surrounding you, but so often with Kent, what's happened is he's come towards the ball. If you remember the start of that second half, I think there was 3 occasions where Kent burst through under, you know, and so far this season and in previous seasons, he wouldn't do that normally. He'd sometimes burst through in possession, but he'd come towards the ball. The ball would try to be circulated wide to Barisic, and these patterns that were so effective at one point, but had become repetitive and kind of an underpinning because it was so predictable. So that early run, it was all these, you know, combined with Morelos contesting and rampaging up the pitch as well. There was all these things that supporters have been so desperate to see, along with just doing something different, and the value of that I think just culminated in such a good occasion. And Kent for me was one of the main big winners last night. Van Bronckhorst spoke about him wanting to play with freedom. But when they get the ball into him quickly, he can get into dangerous zones. And instead of him having to run from out to in, he could have the momentum to run from in to out. And it's something that we've spoken about a lot on the site and have mentioned a good few times. Just that simple change in the rotation in the left, where Kamara would play more of a support role. Barisic only overlapped when the space was there, and I thought he timed some of his overlaps really well. It was definitely one of his better performances of the season. So that was definitely something that excited me looking on, of course, alongside Alfredo Morelos, who was back, so to speak. And
we'll get to that. We'll get to that. What I want to ask you first of all, just with this change in the formation, with more of a traditional winger in Kent, and also on the other side, Hadji was playing far more close to the touchline than he normally would.
Yeah.
Does this expose a glaring weakness in the Rangers squad from the point of view of those traditional type of wingers? Because Rangers really have 2, Scott Wright and Ryan Kent. Yanis Hadji is not a winger. So if Van Bronckhorst is going... listen, but before I say anything else, I would say that Hadji, I thought, had a good game and was a terrific assist for his first goal, Morelos' first goal. But does it expose an area where they will need to show up in the transfer market to ensure that they've got a little bit extra?
Maybe, and also I think it's worth mentioning, Jonny, that Sparta, if you look at the goals they conceded at the weekend, this isn't a team that in recent weeks has been necessarily resolute. They conceded 7 against Lyon. They played a high line, very top heavy. And I think in a way what they did complemented what Rangers did last night, because Rangers could afford to play those 2 players in midfield and allow a little bit more room in front of the defence, because there wasn't as much of a link player dropping in, and there was that room to hit. But Hadji, you would say, timed a few of those runs really well and looked quite quick going in behind. Aribo also at times came off from the right flank, but certainly as a number 10, late entries into the penalty box, really strong defensively on their number 8, which I think is a really important role when you're playing behind the striker in the defensive phase. So maybe so, but again, this will probably look different against teams that sit in a little bit more. Maybe you do want one of your wingers to come slightly inverted on the other side, but certainly with Kent on that side, he occupied that defence so well, and he was the main outlet, the main danger. That also, Hadji's slightly regressed position sometimes allows Morelos to come in and make those curved runs. You've seen a good few of those up the right touchline with him and Aribo in that second half yesterday. So, yeah, I think that's something that we'll learn more of in coming weeks. But I do think this was a game that the space that Sparta allowed very much suited the approach that Rangers used.
Yeah. Right, we'll get to Morelos now. You were trying to push me onto it a little bit too early, Josh. Wasn't having that, but I'm ready now. I'm ready to hold my hands up and say, you know, I've given him a hard time on this video for quite a large proportion of the season. But I've always said that Alfredo Morelos gets a hard time simply because we know what he's capable of. And last night, once again, he showed what he's capable of. And he showed why it was right that he's been getting a hard time, because he's not been playing like that, Joshua. He's been nowhere near playing like that. He was back at his best, rolling defenders, getting in people's faces. Most importantly, he wasn't dropping into a number 10 position and trying to link play the entire game. He was in the box. Mm-hmm. And you saw that in terms of both goals. The first one, what a lovely sweeping finish. Older Rangers fans will probably remember quite a similar finish from Ali McCoist against Celtic at a rain-sodden Hampden back in the 90s. It was just a lovely one with your first touch sweeping shot, skidding into the corner. It was fantastic. And a really difficult chance, tucked away really, really nicely. And then the second one, Joshua, is one of those ones that people think, well, it's a gift and it's an easy chance, but it's really not. He changes his body shape in an instant and converts the header brilliantly, I thought. It's the kind of chance that Alfredo routinely misses, and it just summed up the kind of form he was in on the night.
Yeah, again, there's another thing that Van Bronckhorst certainly on his first rodeo fixed within about 20 minutes, and he said that on BT Sport after the game about him playing higher up the pitch effectively, but then the balls into him were quicker, the runners off him were more intentional and behind. But his individual duels, there was just a good few moments. I don't know if you remember, there was a moment when he won a corner in the first half, and it all came from that classic role of the defender. When the ball's being played over to him and he's contesting it, and there was just a lot of moments like that where it was quite a throwback, and it showed supporters. I think you're right that I think criticism has been pretty justified. I wrote in my piece this morning that his divided opinion this season is his new role going to get the best out of him or not, and he divided opinion up until Sunday when I don't think you'd have seen many defenders for that performance. And I mean, I've not looked at his carry map yet, but I guess it'll be more carries than he's made in Europe in a long time. Again, it was very 2019 Morelos-ish in terms of him looking to progress the ball sometimes himself instead of always bringing players into play. And he was helped by the width of the wingers. Again, the Rangers, the area that Rangers were playing in of the pitch compared to Sunday was just night and day. If you go back and read the match analysis and that, you'll see how tight and compact they were making the game themselves by not having any natural width. But when you have natural width, it doesn't just give you passing options, but also stretches the opposition out, because if they're going to have to stretch out, the gaps in between are greater. Therefore, the bodies around Morelos are fewer. There's more one-on-one battles, which I think suited a lot of the players last night, but it requires a lot of physicality than the 4-3-3 would. But it was just fantastic to see Morelos go back to that level that everyone knows he can reach, and I think it put visual to what a lot of people have thought, ourselves included, that Van Bronckhorst's previous use of strikers as more of a focal point to bring people into play and to be in the box, crucially in the box, and start the game 10 yards higher than Morelos has will get the best out of him. So yeah, that was great to see as well, and the supporters really enjoyed that as well.
Yeah, we've got a question here from CGM55. What did you make of his celebration after the first? Of course, he came up to the cameras and said, shh. Well, I think he's entitled to do that. People have been criticising him. So, it's one of those. It's like football. You're going to get criticism when you're not playing well. And when you come out and give a performance like that, you're entitled to have your say back and say, oh, look, I'm still here and I'm still firing the goals in. And, speculation that my demise is imminent is wildly wrong.
Yeah,
so
100%.
Fair enough. I will say. What do you think, Joshua?
Yeah, you want players with attitude. Do you know what I mean? I thought it's just classic Morelos, and it's good fun. That's what it is. He himself will have known that performances haven't been good enough, but he'll always, even after a performance like Sunday, when he's really off it and Rangers go out another cup, a few days later he can be the star just like that, because the supporters love him so much because of what he's done for them in the past. So completely agree with you, Jonny. That's football, and that's one of the good bits of football.
Yeah, got a comment here from Aldo McNaught that's a little bit sweary, so I can't actually put it up. But he says, Alan McGregor, take a bow, you beautiful beep. Some amazing saves, man. It was pretty much incredible, that double save by Alan McGregor, Joshua. And
but can we say as well the Tavernier header after it? I mean, did you see that? Yeah. For me, that was just as impressive, because the goal, it will be a goal if Tavernier doesn't take the ball off the head of the incoming forward.
Yes.
But a fantastic double save, and quite one of those moments where you're in the ground and it happened, and you look to the person next to you and you think, that was unbelievable. Did we really just witness that? Because to just stick a leg out like that was so nonchalant, but saved it.
It was enough. And he made a terrific save in the first half as well, and it kind of puts to bed a lot of the discussion around Alan McGregor and his performances, because, listen, it's been fair. He hasn't really made many saves recently. Rangers have conceded a lot of goals from not too many shots. I'm not sure how many were really Alan McGregor's fault, but certainly a couple were. And he's had to take, I think, for the first time in his Rangers career, some quite sustained criticism.
Yeah.
But if you're wanting to answer your critics, what a way to do it. Because I thought he wasn't called upon too often last night, but when he was there. That's the hallmarks of a great Rangers keeper. We know Andy Gorham used to do that all the time. He'd have nothing to do, and then all of a sudden, in the 88th minute, he would pop up with an incredible save. And Alan McGregor thought was like that last night. But I suppose that it sounds like I'm characterising the game slightly wrongly there, because although McGregor did have that double save and a save with a low shot down to his left that he deflected away with his leg in the first half, Rangers themselves had 5-6 really good chances. I mean, this is a game that probably could and should have been 4-1 or something like that. That would have been a more accurate reflection of the scoreline, I think.
Yeah, well, up until, I've got it here in front of me, Johnny, up until...
Yeah, what's the XG?
The XG finished at 2.34 to 1.02. But if you look at that, Sparta were at 0.34 until 72 minutes. So they did have a late kind of flux. And I think as well that's natural. When the team are playing a new shape, they did fall a little bit deep in those two banks of four in the final 20 minutes. But that aside, to that point, I thought they defended really, really well. And again, how many times did you see Ryan Kent bursting back into the penalty area and it actually led to the McGregor save. He was unfortunate with an interception he didn't get the better of. But that cover was just so effective in protecting either fullback and protecting another thing that Rangers have been increasingly vulnerable to in recent months, which is switches of play, wide overloads, and their best asset at one point in Europe, which was that overloading to protect one side, then increasingly exposing the other. So I think up until that last 10 minutes, it felt relatively comfortable, and Rangers well worth the win. Joe Rebo could have had a hat-trick on another night. His first chance, actually, if you look back at it, the one that he kind of cushions over the bar, that had an XG of 0.05, a harder chance than you kind of think at first instinct. But I thought his movement, the one that he chips over the bar,
that was 0.05.
No, the first one that Hadji plays across him, because I think because of the height the ball comes to.
Yeah, so, Ali McCoy's was saying on the TV studio that he should put himself forward for a diving header. He said, I finish it like that every day of the week. Diving header, bam.
He was quite a good finisher though, wasn't he?
He knew his onions about these things. Listen, we should talk about Calvin Bassey as well.
Yeah.
He was terrific. Fraser McKenzie here saying very athletic and powerful, which goes without saying. Josh, I'm wondering if Calvin Bassey's future might be in centre back, especially now, and especially when Rangers they're having the kind of pace that Bassey brings to the table is such a huge asset for Rangers. Mm-hmm. So if you can mould someone his age into a really good, comfortable centre-half, surely he can be an incredible asset for the club. I mean, I like him at left-back, but I'm starting to wonder, just his physique, his size, his pace, maybe left centre-back is a better position for him. I know he's got Philip Helander in there, but I'm talking long-term, Joshua.
Yeah, I guess we need to see a few more games with it, but and Calvin Bassey himself was asked about this last night, and he said, I'll play anywhere for the team, and his attitude does seem absolutely spot on, but he did kind of temper that with saying he preferred left back, just, I guess, as manager knows. But I agree with you. Last night, I thought he did so many of the elements of the game well. With the ball, he was really good. There was a couple of line breaking passes. There was one where he he almost did the Busquets, where he looks wide, he commits the player by looking wide with his eyes, opens up the lane that he can pass along and chopped into midfield. Composure on the ball, really impressive. I thought his one-on-one duels, he was just so strong in winning them. Also coming out the defence at points to protect that space behind Davies and Kamara that I referenced earlier. All over the pitch, was just a warrior, really. And again, I think the biggest compliment you can give him is coming into a big game of that magnitude in a new system, without having played that role before. He looked every bit of centre-back. You know, if you'd watched Rangers for the first time last night, you wouldn't think that's a player playing out of position. So, you've got to presume maybe he again benefited from he spoke about 11 players defending last night. Yeah. Now, of course, it's not as if in the past that 3 players weren't defending to the extent you've seen with PSG, for example, on Tuesday, but there was a more intentional tracking back, of course, in the front 3 in terms of back to front. So maybe he benefited from that as well. But I thought he was really impressive. I could see someone there saying Barrie, my man of the match, and I think he was, definitely a good argument for it. I think he was an 8 alongside Kent and Morelos for me. So that's another positive, especially if he has to go and play that role at Livingston on Sunday.
Okay, Joshua, we're going to call this a day here. You can get a lot more reaction to the game at www.rangersreview.co.uk, guys. We'd absolutely love you to subscribe. It's currently on a Black Friday deal for only £1 per month for the first 6 months. And that subscribes the kind of quality Rangers journalism we bring you every single day. That includes stats bomb analysis, it includes opinion, long read interviews with former Rangers players and features, the whole shebang, everything you could want from Rangers coverage. We have it at the Rangers Review. So it's only £1 a month. So get on there, sign up now. This deal only lasts until the end of the week. So, it's a fantastic offer and one that you won't regret signing up for. Also, guys, if you're on YouTube, we know many of you are. We've had thousands of new subscribers in the last wee while. Please hit subscribe. Don't just watch, hit subscribe, as that means that you will get a notification when we go live. We don't just go live in the morning. If there's big breaking news, we'll get on the video so we can talk to you and interact with your questions. That's it from us today. Until next time, thanks for watching.